Hello again everybody, and a very warm welcome back to the channel. We've waited a long time for it, but it's finally here. The Fenix A319 right in front of us, and the A321 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So here we have it, the beautiful A319 from Fenix Sim and the A321 as well, both released just a few days ago now for Microsoft Flight Simulator, highly anticipated and delayed by around a year. We've all been waiting for these. Naturally, there are lots of liveries available already in the Fenix livery installer, and as you can hear, just in the background for this, the actual British Airways boarding music, which I've heard so many times, having flown with them as cabin crew for 3 and a bit years, but also having flown with them as a passenger. It's iconic. The detail on this aeroplane and the A321 is precisely what we'd come to expect from the folks at Fenix Sim. Beautifully created exterior model, amazing immersion and system depth. And each of the new aircraft options come with its own set of quirks, which means that we need to be careful how we operate these aeroplanes. They both will need slightly different methodology for things like approach. One thing that I think is quite impressive as well, that I've quite liked with the A319 and A321 release, is the fact that the Fenix or the Fenix app carries over a lot of our data into the new A319 and 21 from the A320. It doesn't carry over your custom views or anything naturally, but your throttle calibrations, at least for me, have all stayed the same and carried across without me having to recalibrate anything, which is really quite nice. So you can just buy it, jump in and fly. Now of course, with both the A319 and A321, you get, like you do the A320, the 2 engine options, the CFM powered Airbus and also the IAE Airbus, and depending on which livery you have those different options to choose from. You'll also notice in there a single class and a 2 class configuration. British Airways naturally, of course, for example, uses a 2 class config, although it is adaptable with a cabin divider, whereas a low cost operator like EasyJet using a CFM A319 or 21 will have a single class configuration, and that will then also allow virtual airlines like our own, but Osprey Airways, to configure the liveries and the aircraft based on their own individual requirements, which again is a really nice little touch that they've added in. Now naturally as well, beyond the quirks and the differences of the way these aeroplanes feel and handle, albeit they operate the same way, there are other tweaks as well, like the environmentals, the sounds. Now, the A319 is a lot stubbier, so the engine noise is slightly louder than it is, for example, on the A321. It's also a bit of a sports car. We are, as we see in real life quite often, taking off from the Alpha 6 intersection at Heathrow because we don't need the entire runway for this shuttle service. And it just feels sporty, it feels responsive, and it feels smooth. So when you're flying these different types, it is worth just taking a moment to try and notice some of these differences, because they are all very individual, even though they're effectively the same aircraft, just a bit squished and a bit squashed, or a bit stretched, depending on which one you're flying. Now the A321, by comparison, is a slightly different beast. Whilst in flight on approach, fully configured in the A319, you may find that it is a little bit slippy and doesn't want to decelerate as much. This has its own quirks. Not least its longer fuselage, giving cause for easier chance, bigger risk, greater risk of tail strikes on takeoff rotation or indeed during the flare. But its soundscape is also different therefore because of the longer fuselage, the distance from the engines to the flight deck. Now for a quick cabin comparison, you can definitely get a feel for the difference in size. And not only that, you've got the additional 4 doors in the midsection of the fuselage. With those extra doors, naturally, we have a slightly different core panel with a midsection. But all the system depth and the detail is all the same. With the A321, it really likes to land with full flap, and also, if you're close to your maximum landing weight from conversations with real airline pilots who fly this type, they sometimes have to do a bit of a dance with flaps and speed brake around the green dot speed if they're trying to land and they're flying an approach at or near to maximum landing weight. And with that, what I mean is, just as a bit of a topic of discussion and to use an example, if you're flying the approach near to maximum landing weight, you will find that you get to green dot during the deceleration, but you are too fast for the flap 1 extension speed, VFE of 135 knots. You might have a green dot at 237 knots, for example. The way the flight crew get around that in real life is to do a bit of a dance between flaps and ground spoilers. So they will extend the ground spoilers to trigger a deceleration dip just below the green dot to bring that flap extension speed in range. When it is, they will really quickly close the ground spoilers and almost at the same time then extend to flap 1, which will trigger the aircraft's VNE to drop down right on the edge of the speed that you would be flying, and the aeroplane would begin to decelerate further to its flap 1 speed. And it's quite a bit of a tricky dance, which I'm sure some of you will come across during your flights in the Fenix A321 within the sim. I think what Fenix have been able to do with the expansion, even though we've waited for an additional year, is something remarkably good. It is a spectacular product. Both A319 and A321 feel great. The A320 has developed wonderfully over the last few years as well, with the Block 2 updates and the ones since. For me, the standout is the A321. More so because I like the aircraft with that slightly added challenge of the fuselage length and the risk of tail strikes and that sort of thing. That's probably why I quite like the 321 more so out of any of the other A320 family aircraft, but they are all absolutely fantastic. It's worth mentioning as well that if you haven't purchased the Fenix A320 in the past, they are currently doing, at least around the release of this A319 and 21 package update, a promotional period which allows you to buy all 3 aircraft variants in one go at a slightly discounted rate. You need the A320 because the A319 and 21 act as a bit of a bolt-on to that, from what I understand. But I would wholeheartedly recommend having all 3 available in your hangar. And as far as landing goes, it's not much different to the other aircraft, but again, its characteristics mean that it handles ever so slightly differently. Certainly early sort of feel for the aircraft, the A321 tends to float a tiny bit more than the 319, and in any case you can set quite a nice touchdown regardless.
50, 40, 30, 20, retard, 10, 5,
So there you have it. If you haven't already purchased the Fenix A320 and now the A319 and 21, head to the fenixsim.com website and you'll be able to pick it up there. It's the only place you can buy it. And let us know how you're getting on in the comments section below. Join us for some live streams in the near future. And thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It's always great to have you on board. Take care.